Now we're on.
So we'll call this October 8th, 2024 monthly business meeting to order. Can we start with a pledge of allegiance? Or if somebody would like to volunteer? No? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And then, Quincy, you want to take us through the district goals?
Sure. The goal of our meeting is to have discussions and make decisions that support and further our core district goals. They are: each student will improve academically each year. Our schools will be safe, inclusive, and welcoming. We will strengthen family and community engagement and support partnerships for student learning. And finally, we will maintain and improve our facilities to meet the current and future needs of our students, staff, and community.
Thank you. The next is, are there any revisions to the agenda? And any public comment this evening? I don't believe we have any public correspondence. And then we'll just move on to the approval of minutes. Sir, we do that too. A discussion of that. No, didn't just move right.
Okay, I move we approve the minutes as presented.
I'll second. Motion by Quincy, seconded by Katie. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I'm just gonna keep moving here. So we have a student trustee report this evening. Take it over, Jake.
All right. So I'm just gonna kind of start off with the high school, going through my reports, and mainly just starting off with obviously homecoming. So to start off homecoming, we had club day where all the different clubs in the school were able to kind of showcase what they do and their members, as well as have it as a way to gain new members. And then we also had an open house after that to kind of show parents and students what the school was, and also all the club tables that we had set out. So that was a great way to get the parents involved. Throughout homecoming week, it was a really good building of community, with a big sense of belonging and partaking in all the different events and competitions. In the high school, we had the pep rally, we had the powder puff sports during lunch, which is where we have the girls on the volleyball team train boys to play volleyball during lunch, and then the boys on the football team train girls to play football. So that was kind of fun to watch all those different games. There we also had dress up days and a parade. So that was, obviously the parades, that was just a great way to get the community involved. And it also, as you'll see with my other reports, really permeated into the other schools. So here in the middle school, as well as Moldown, kind of everyone getting together to show their support. And homecoming is just a great way to bring the alumni back and kind of show them currently what we're working on, maybe have them relive their high school glory days a little bit, and just kind of a little bit of nostalgia for everyone who attended the Whitefish school system. At the high school, our theme was the Olympics, and so the theme for our dance was A Night at Paris, and that turned out great. We had over 320 students attend, which is the most we've ever had attend a school dance, and so it's just a great way to get the students involved. On our homecoming court, there were 5 boys and 5 girls, and that ended up being Jeffrey Sagan as the king and Charlotte Perkins as the queen. So that was a good way for the students to kind of just show support for each other. Football, soccer, boys and girls, and volleyball all won their games during homecoming week, which was a really good morale booster. And currently the boys and girls already played, I'm not sure what the score was, but boys are currently playing Columbia Falls down there. So it's a big game going on today. Some other important things that happened. There was the PIR day. And so that was grades 7 through 12 training for the Magic School AI program. Just a new way to innovate AI into our teaching. We had personalized learning specialists come in from Kalispell to help the teachers focus on how they could better teach to the students and not to the class. We also had people from the Nate Shue Foundation who came in to speak on mental health awareness, as well as members from the Indian Education for All, just making sure that all of our education is inclusive. Coming up to high school, there will be the optional PSAT at the end of the month for sophomores and juniors, and that's just a great way to do lots of things, qualify for National Merit Scholarship, give students a good benchmark of where they're at, and just kind of help them prepare for other digitized testing such as the real SAT and ACT, pre-ACT, all of those things. We also have lots of college help at the high school. Through the Whitefish Education Foundation, we have had scholarship coaches come in who have spoken to lots of the seniors about local scholarships and how they can capitalize on that in order to be able to make college more affordable. And by having our students apply for more scholarships and having this structure and this help, we can possibly bring in more donors as they see that our students are more impressive and they're looking for more scholarships. That brings in more money into the school for the students to capitalize on. There will also be the Are You Ready College meeting on Wednesday, just another great way to help the high school students and parents kind of be prepared for college. We have a new work-based learning coordinator who oversees internships for students. And they have been helping students get internships in local businesses. Currently, we're working on setting up internships through Logan Health, different restaurants in the town, vet clinics, hotels, etc. Just another great way to get our students involved in the community and really give back. Fall sports are beginning to wrap up. Golf had a state tournament over the weekend, and most of the sports are starting to move into their playoffs. Open gyms and some practices are beginning for winter sports such as girls and boys basketball, wrestling, swimming, and speech debates. And then lastly, drama auditions have finished, so their productions each semester. This semester is Clue, so looking forward to see that. If you have the time, you should definitely drop on by and see what our drama team is doing. Moving on to the middle school, they have done several field trips to Glacier National Park over the course of 4 days. Every seventh grader was able to attend a field trip to the park to study fire and succession. And that's just a great way to use our local resources to really, show students what we have to offer here and just kind of get them more connected with the community. The Student Council of WMS has also been very busy. They planned their Homecoming Spirit Week. They also fundraise for Hurricane Helene relief efforts, which is a great way to, kind of show that we're not just here in Montana, we're having national impacts. And then they also are planning for the Halloween activity night coming up on October 25th. For the sixth graders, all of the sixth graders at the middle school are in the music program, and so they were able to attend the Nano Stern outreach program at the O'Shaughnessy, which is another nationally ranked program that kind of introduces them to more cultural-based music. Also happening at the middle school is similar to the high school. Their activities are starting to wrap up with cross country consistently finishing top in their meets. Football has competed in almost all of their games, except for one against Sioux Falls later this week. Cross your fingers, hopefully we do well. And volleyball also ended their season with great turnouts at their end tournaments, being able to win both of these tournaments for 7th and 8th grade. Moving on down to Moldown. For their homecoming week, they also had a lot of dress-up days to represent each individual grade level and Bulldogs overall. All students and staff attended the parade, as I'm sure you saw, and having the Moldown students there is just, it makes the parades more fun. They all have their really cute signs and they misspell Bulldogs. And it really brings everyone together. It's a great way to show that homecoming isn't just for high school, it's for the entire community. There's also the first round of mass testing, which is the Montana Aligned Standards through the year testing. It's pretty much just statewide assessments in math and English language arts, just another great benchmark for our students to take. That is for 3rd and 4th graders. Starting at Moldown, they also have the Walk to Math WIN program. WIN is an acronym that stands for What I Need, so it's dealing with more personalized learning for each students and focusing on math. So combined with the mass testing and this math program, we are kind of hitting all of the core pillars of education, really making sure that our students are getting a well-rounded education. And although this math program just began, the staff is working very hard to make it work for the kids, and I'm sure it will turn out great throughout the year. And then also they are gearing up for Halloween there. For little kids, Halloween is more than just a holiday. It's an event with, lots of different things that go on. Lots of parties, dressing up is kind of life. And so that's just a great thing to look forward to at Moldown. So some takeaways for the district. Obviously, homecoming was a great way to bring all 3 schools together with the community, united by the Bulldog spirit. And with testing underway and fall activities beginning to wrap up, students and staff are preparing for the winter and all of the associated activities with excitement for what is to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Yeah, really good. Great job.
Thank you.
Do we have a WEA update today?
I'm back. I was gone for a couple months. I'm gonna go in the reverse order of student trustee Docker, starting with mull down. And just so you guys know, I'm gonna use some different language here, because what I did is I reached out to all of our building LMC groups and asked for feedback from each building, and I've been doing that over the last couple of weeks, just since the start of school till now. So if I say we, it is coming from the staff at that school. So from mull down, homecoming was fun for all was the first thing they said, which was awesome. Mull down's new reading program is up and running, and and takes quite a lot of the day to get through it. Teachers are hopeful that if they teach it long enough, they'll be able to bring the science, social studies, and art and expand science and social studies inside of that program. So I'm not super familiar with what that looks like right now. I bet Mrs. Bloom can fill us in. Muldown already had one of their most productive building labor management meetings last week, and their teachers and administration seem to be working well together. So that's awesome. At the middle school, they also reported just a very positive start. Middle school teachers and students are settling in after a successful start to the school year. They appreciate the guidance and support they get from Josh and Tyler, Mr. Brewster, and Mr. Jones. When dealing with challenging students or parent situations, they feel very supported. The 8th grade teachers, civics teachers, are finishing up a voting and election unit. Students are researching candidates in various states and national races and creating their own voter information pathways, which is kind of cool. And Mr. Dunker shared a little bit about 7th grade science, but one of the things that was really neat that was shared with me is they did have a hands-on learning experience in the park where they were able to compare a forest that had burned 20 years ago to a forest that burned 110 years ago, and use tree plotting techniques that the Forest Service uses. So they actually got to play with some data and some different systems. That's pretty neat. At the high school teachers said at the beginning of the year, our PIR and professional development days and were in all caps, this one, way beneficial. And they really loved the start of the year. They felt like they had more time to work on curriculum and getting things going without having a lot of different meeting interruptions. So really appreciated the structure. Homecoming was really long because it spanned 2 weekends this year. So that was great. So we started out, we did a nice warm up. We had a really nice student council retreat, and they planned the whole thing. And they started with a nice comfy close day on a Friday. And then the kids got a long weekend. But I do have to say there's some sad news. Our staff finally lost to a student team in the powder puff volleyball. It's been a long time. It's pretty brutal. It was a really good game. It was kind of, maybe, it was a better game for the juniors, obviously. So now we need to get that back, because it was a long title that we held. If we include student council members in our dance last Saturday, we had 350 students, actually. Their bonuses, they set up takedown, then they don't have to pay the fee, but we still calculated because they were there till the end. So that was pretty neat. At our independent high school, I have a little bit of a report here. The beginning of September, students and staff, so 3 staff and 11 students, went through 3 days of AIRE, if you're familiar, wilderness first aid training. So there are now 14 humans at the independent high school that have a full WUFA certification, which is the first level of a wilderness training. And again, like to thank Mrs. Bloom for supporting us with the transformational learning grant, and so those pieces that help pay for that. And then did an annual Ravenwood outdoor school closed. Some of you might be aware that used to be the fall activity for the independent high school, but instead went on a camping trip to Kukanusa that turned out really neat. 15 students and 3 staff with 5 speakers. One from Murray Springs Fish, Wildlife and Parks, which is also overseen by the Army Corps of Engineers. They manage the fish population that is impacted by the Libby Dam. The next were two Forest Service field specialists who are archaeologists, one of whom was a Whitefish High School graduate. So was really neat to have this person explain their process of going through graduation, what they did next, and how they became an archaeologist in the woods. Really kind of neat. And a US Border Patrol person came to camp and spoke, and then we were actually allowed with federal clearance inside the Libby Dam. Which is really neat. It is also managed by the Forest Service and maintained by the Army Corps of Engineers. And if you guys aren't familiar with the Libby Dam, the architecture of it is really neat and made to fit the landscape, but the acoustics inside the dam are really amazing. And so we had some choir singers with us, and they sang around inside the dam that just reverbed off of everything. Really neat. So everybody's really appreciative of how this year started up, so thank you. Thanks to our administrators for helping facilitate all of that. Thanks to Lisa Bloom for all of our good PD. Love the personalized stuff. And everything's great, so thanks so much. And I'll probably see you next month.
That was great.
Oh, sorry, did you have to?
I
got the vote.
So I guess we're gonna just keep moving on into the discussion and action items. To start, we're going to do a classroom experience highlight.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Last time I was here, I shared with you all about our end of the year data, and I love doing that. But in addition to that, my second love is always highlighting what's going on in Whitefish School District. And this evening I have Jason Sanders from Whitefish High School. He is coming to you from the culinary department, which is one of the most popular programs at Whitefish High School. And this time of year is super exciting because he cooks soup. Just visiting with him before the meeting starting, and he's got 8 soups he actually cooked. I'm gonna go over tomorrow. Partake, I think. Anyway, I'm going to ask Jason to come up and share with you all of the amazing things that he does. Jason, come on up.
Hello. I don't usually need a mic. And because very rarely for me, I'm coming down with a little bit of a cold, but I think my voice will carry. I laugh with my students that I should be the movie voice guy. And now that it's Halloween, you could Halloween. Rated R, and I could make $1 million instead of not making $1 million. I was asked to come in and share some things about, as Lisa said, Lisa asked me to come in and share some things that I'm doing. What am I doing? What am I thinking? Is what I think sometimes. I'm dealing with teenagers, right? And I'm dealing with such wonderful people, like such awesome people that are trying to figure out what it is they're actually doing. And so I have that in common with them. I wrote a few things down here to share with you. I started, this will be my 6th year. And that's interesting for me because in some ways it feels like 26, in some ways it feels like this will be my 2nd year. So it depends, I think, on how you look at it. I started a month into the year. When I started, the guy that was going to do the program quit 3 days before school started. And I was approached. I had taken a year off to manifest and change and do something a little different and just relax for a minute. And I rolled into the school, and it had been 3 weeks of watching Chopped with a sub with these kids. And I started in there, and there was a bit of a baking curriculum in there that was kind of pieced together. And I wasn't told that. I was told it was called culinary arts, which it was. And I basically just tossed the baking curriculum and started rolling. And I aligned with OPI, I aligned with the state and national level requirements and my idea on culinary arts. And that really is an interesting thing. My idea on culinary arts, that's 35 years. 6 of which in the Bay Area, 5 of which in Salt Lake City, all over, and 23 years here. And I used that to get, among other things, to get my teaching certificate and started teaching these kids. And as Carrie Drown likes to say, what's the cliche? What's the saying, I should say? I'm building the plane while I'm flying it, and that's exactly what was going on. It's probably the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life. I've never really taught like this, except I taught my students or my employees in my kitchens. But to have these students in front of me and I'd write these units and these lessons, and I would succeed and it would be over for that day. And I'd say, what am I doing tomorrow? And I'd say, I have no idea. So anyway, my rules were, number 1, have fun, and number 2, be kind. And everything else falls into place after that. I tell my students that if they're kind and they're having fun, then the food tastes better. And it does. It really does. And so I've kept that. I shared with Carrie, actually, I was talking to Carrie a while back, and you'd think that in the experience I had of that first year, that I'd look back and go, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe I was doing that. I've changed everything. And what was I even thinking? And it's largely the same, which I think is really lucky. I wouldn't really give myself credit for that. I think I lucked into doing a lot of things that my mom did, and a lot of things she expected of us. And anyway, that's interesting to me that it has stayed, it's sustained kind of the same that way. I keep my expectations really high for these kids, and I keep my patience meter really, really high for these kids. And it's interesting because again, what we do was I was asked to share with you what we do. We share the experience of really good food together, and we please other people with food, and we have fun, and we're kind to one another, is what we do. It's interesting because a lot of these kids have walk-in fireplaces, and a lot of them don't have a stove. And I have 9, 10, 11, and 12 all in my classes at the same time. So it's quite an array going on in there, and I treat all of them the same. And I think the kids that have everything are sick of that. And I think the kids that have nothing are sick of kind of being treated like that. And I don't really care what grade they're in. I can usually tell, especially with the boys. But they're all the same. We're all the same. We eat the same. And this food is this unifying factor that it brings us all together. And the joy of that is super intense, and it's really, really fun. And I'm really grateful for it. It's really, really neat. We share it together and share the joy of pleasing others with food. These kids take these things that we make to their teachers. And can I take this to Mr. Estrada? I remember you doing that.
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't have enough. And I'm like, we just have enough to feed us, and we're way more important than these teachers, or whatever I'll say, right? And the girl says, I won't have mine if I can just go and give it to Mrs. So-and-so or Mr. So-and-so, because you change their day, and they come back and say, Chef, I made his day. He forgot his lunch. You should have seen the look on his face. And it's this just wonderment of complete and utter, to see them learn. And this is such a sidecar thing, that there's a lot of things that happened with what I'm doing that were not intentional, and this is one of them, in terms of their joy of pleasing other people with food. So super cool. I tell my students I would not change this curriculum if it was for you or my coworkers or their parents or any adults. It's really kind of the same thing, which is a neat thing with our class. For instance, I'm teaching them how to poach eggs. I could ask you to raise your hand if you know how to correctly poach an egg. I won't, but we're making biscuits from scratch, right? We're doing some basics, cooking pasta, making meatballs, and making things that they can eat all week for not a lot of money. That's way better, hopefully, than what you can get in the restaurant. That's way better for you. That's more fun, and that can sustain them. and their families and their friends. I think that interestingly, we talk about with OPI and we talk about our district and we talk about our schools of getting these kids jobs and being in the industry. And a lot of them want to do it. And a lot of them are going to do it. And I help them. I place them in jobs. I coach them. I go over their resume. I worked at every restaurant, Whitefish, for the last 25 years, and I've run a lot of them. And I help them that way. And I get them. I got a kid a job up at Iron Horse who needed it, and he is flourishing up there, right? But a lot of them, more often than not, they don't want to be a chef. They need to be able to sustain themselves, in my opinion. I shouldn't lecture you, but in my opinion, humble or not, they need to be able to sustain themselves and their families and learn how to cook. So I feel like what I do is the most important thing at our school. And I hope that all of our teachers feel that same way. I really do feel like that. And that makes it a lot of fun for me. We'll move from some of those simple things into Thai dumplings and coconut curry broth and sticky rice and make our own tortillas and make some enchiladas and Mexican food. And we started Indian food last year. We did a tikka masala and we did saag paneer. Indian food is my favorite food in the world. And it's so interesting what they don't know. They don't know anything. In comparison to my experiences, everybody knows this. I'm a chef, right? And it's cool to see them learn. I had someone say that must make it so difficult that they don't know anything. I said, no, you see the light bulb. I hear a lot of, chef, I thought this was going to be so much harder than this. I hear that all the time. We make crepes. It's flour. It's pennies. And they make them and they're just like shaking. They're so excited to do this. It's really cool to see that joy. You know, I wrote some things down. I think that I'm just super grateful to do this. I'm changing the trajectory. We're changing the trajectory of these kids for the rest of their lives, and I get so much joy from that, and I'm so grateful for that. And it's such a unique situation because it's pretty rare for someone to be a chef and work for 35 years doing it and get certified through the American Culinary Federation and go to the CCA in San Francisco and love doing this. And then say, I think I'll teach high school. It doesn't really happen. And so it's a unique situation for me in that the joy I get from this, like I said, is just, it's crazy. I'm so fortunate. And I'm so fortunate to be with my administrators and my coworkers and my students. And I'm really, really looking forward to the expansion adventure and getting some more space. And I don't sit around in there and complain and whine and I wish I had this. We're doing it. I just cooked, Lisa was saying, 35 gallons of 8 different kinds of soup with 100 teenagers in 2 days in that space. And we'll feed the staff tomorrow. It's going to be cool. They're all going to roll in. It's a time when it's fall and they pack my room and there's 8 soups and I have 3 students with ladles and they're serving them and we're making our soup and enjoying together and experiencing the joy of pleasing others with food together. And we're having fun and we're being kind to one another. And so it's cool. It's super cool. Like I said, I talk to people about working here and I'm so proud to work here. I really am, where I can it's almost braggart for me because it's a good fit. It turned out really good. It's turning out really good. Do you guys have any questions about the program? We are looking to do Running Start and I'm working on that right now with FECC to get some dual credit in there for these kids that want to do that. So that'll be cool.
It might be a dumb question, but like the curriculum, what is it like when you or how do you grade or like how does that?
It's a great question. There's English. I have a 1,000-word essay that they do on the topic of their choice, and I have a minor in literature from my business training, and I help them design these essays, and we rock, and that's a big scorer there. We do a lot of math. I have weights and measurements and conversions. I do a lot of some algebra. We convert Celsius into Fahrenheit to Celsius and back and forth and use math that way, and they're tested on that. It's really kind of unique in terms of the grading. I came up with this like that first semester, and Jake might remember your final review and document that you pulled up off of your Chromebook. Whenever we work on things together, we then come back in later and I go pull up your document and we just did soup. So what is roux? What is mirepoix? What does BTAB mean? What's a thin soup? What's a thick soup? What all of this stuff with soups, and they're writing the question and the answer down in their Chromebook. And then we stop and then we open, and by the end of the year, there's about 80 or 85 questions on that, and that's their final. So it's action, it's what we're actually doing. And they know it. They know it. I try to tell them that I asked them, how long do we learn this? You know, for the rest of our lives. And it's funny that way, because I don't care what they get on the final as much as I do, that they understand how to do it. But so there's the cumulative of that. There's participation. You need to be present, you need to be engaged, you need to be on time. I look at it as a chef in the industry of, you're not tardy, you're just fired. I can't fire these students. Some of them it would be nice if I could fire them. But instead, Jeff Peck taught me something like my first year, and he said, you know, every day is Groundhog Day. And it is. And you start over, everything's new, no matter what. And they do too. They don't hold grudges. It's so interesting. It's so refreshing. When I first started teaching, I thought they would. They'd pout. I yell at them. Pretty rare, but sometimes I do. But anywho, so that's a cumulative of those kinds of things. I try to do cross-curricular things. We're working on some really cool stuff with Indian Education for All in terms of the food of that differs from our different tribes and our Blackfeet, the history of these people and what they were eating. It's pretty slim and grim in terms of what some of these Blackfeet folks were eating, but really cool to expose them to that. Anyway, there's participation points, and a lot for me is a case-by-case basis with these kids, and there's deadlines for grades and there's things, but I don't put up with any of their BS. And yeah, I'm there for them for whatever they need. So it's kind of a good mix that way. Like I said earlier, I expect a lot of, and I love them a lot, and I think that they know that, and so that changes a lot of it. That changes the whole. I kind of have an unfair advantage over some of my coworkers because I get them through their stomachs. So I'm about 2 weeks into the semester and they're like, chef, they know it's inclusive. They know it's a safe place. They know it's okay. And I help them. I end up helping them with a lot of things, culinary or not, that they need. And they're willing to kind of open up and let me help them a little bit more, I think, because they're eating. And I had 190 students sign up for this semester. And I was able to whittle it down a little bit because I got rid of all the repeats. And then give the new students a chance to do it. But I think with the expansion thing, it's going to be really cool. I think sometimes we're careful what we look for. So we'll see what happens. Any other questions? Hopefully that's okay for what you wanted.
It's great. Thank you, J.C.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Eric Harris, the next with the fall activities.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'll start with just some updates on music, if that's okay, and activities. First, I don't want to be repetitive of things that have already been said about homecoming, but I do want to say it was a great week and a lot of fun to watch the community be involved in so many of the events that we had throughout the week, from soccer games, the volleyball games, to a football game. The parade was great. Amazing turnout at the homecoming dance, and we just had a just really great week overall. So I just want to thank our administration and our teachers and our coaches, and it really takes a community to pull off a week like that of events, and just really thankful for everybody that had a role to play. So thank you. Music, we'll start off with an update. I usually give this report in like December, so fall had already been completed, but we are kind of right into crunch time right now with fall sports and activities. So we have a lot going on. Everybody's really busy. So it's good. It's a good time of year. So music, we have 7 students that were selected for all-state music and band, choir, and orchestra. So to my knowledge, I went back and looked through some of our old data, and that's the most that we've sent in quite some time, at least in my 12 years. I think looking back on my notes from 2 years ago, I said we took 5 and that was the most we'd ever taken. So it keeps getting better and better every year. So yeah, one of the largest groups that we've taken, they're gonna head off to Billings here next week over NBA days to compete in that. Choir currently, we have 38 students participating in that. Today we had a professional singing group from Alaska. The Pipeline Vocal Project came and performed here at the PAC, and our kids got to participate in a mini concert and a master class. So that was really cool to see. And choir's been busy fundraising for their trip to California in April, as you're probably all aware. And preparing for their Western Egg Choral Festival next month down in Hamilton, and of course, getting ready for their winter concerts here coming up in December. Band, we currently have 62 students involved in that, and band had a composer from India join the class virtually today. Because they're working on a piece that this composer has created. So it was really cool. Matt was in there setting up during when I was coming in to talk to him, and getting that already. So it's kind of neat to see what's going on in these other classrooms, these other programs. October 22nd, the band will be performing at the PAC here, and they'll be preparing for the Fall Jazz Night at the Lockwood Center coming up on about mid-November. And then we had several students that auditioned in the All Northwest Music auditions. That they worked hard all through the summer. Those auditions just took place, and so we're just waiting to hear back on the results of those auditions. But we should hear those results fairly soon. And then lastly on band, this one's really cool, is the President's Own Marine Band is going to Spokane here next month. And so our band is going to go over to Spokane and see the President's Marine Band perform over in Spokane. And it's regarded as the best band in the country. And I think it's a really cool opportunity for these kids to go check that out. They're just going to be down and back in a day and not miss any school. So, and then orchestra, we have 68 kids currently in orchestra. And of course, they're getting ready for all their upcoming concerts and festivals. And we got one going to Billings for All State as well. I should probably have you do this part, but I'll hit it for you. Speech, we just got started here 2 weeks ago. We had a parent meeting. Yeah. So anticipating 40 students to compete in speech and debate this year. And then once our fall sports wrap up, we usually start acquiring more kids that are going to join, as the season got underway. It's pretty typical. But after a workshop, our first competition will be early November in Kalispell. Yeah, so looking forward to that. And I do think that program will continue to grow in participants. So currently with our activities, our music, speech, and drama, we have 236 participants right now with just activities. So it's a great number to have. Drama is just getting underway with their fall performance of Clue, which Mr. Dunker just described, and that'll be at the PAC November 14th through the 16th with 28 kids involved. So looking forward to that. Moving on to clubs, we have 19 active clubs currently at the high school. Great list, great group of clubs. Over 400 students are involved in clubs at Whitefish High School. And quite the variety. Club day was great, as Jake talked about. And it's just a recruiting piece for a lot of kids that when I was trying to get every kid involved in something at the high school, so they find some kind of attachment outside of their classes that they're in. And so I thought that went really well with the numbers that we're showing in our club participation. And then on to athletics, we did just wrap up boys and girls state golf in Polson on Friday and Saturday. We had frost delays Thursday for the practice round, frost delay Friday for the practice round. Then we had a debris delay after the windstorm on Friday. For Saturday, I was able to be down there on Saturday to hand out awards and watch a couple holes, and girls ended up taking second, which was incredible. We have a really young group of girls golfers. They'll be back next year, and then our boys took fourth, and again, another young group of golfers. So our future looks bright there in that program, and our coaches did a great job of preparing kids for that big stage. Considering we didn't send full teams last year, and so we were able to qualify with great showings at the divisional tournaments the week before. Cross country is winding down. We have our last regular season meet in Pablo this weekend, and then we head to Libby for the Fall Classic next Friday. So it's our version of the divisional meet, and then on to state. So Lot of good things going on in our cross-country program. Numbers are slowly building from what they've been in years past, and really commend Coach Manick and his staff for what they've been doing with our athletes and the training that goes on there. As most of you know, girls soccer is probably just wrapping up about now over in Columbia Falls in a big conference battle with the Wildcats. Both our programs are currently ranked second in the conference. If we win, we would get first. If we were to lose or tie, we would end up third in that one. But the girls are currently 7-2-1 on the season, and then we'll finish up the regular season on Thursday against Thompson Falls for senior night. Boys are in a very similar situation currently, second. They kick off here about 20 minutes, so I'm gonna be heading over there. We just gotta wait to see what the outcomes of tonight are, but overall, it's been a great soccer season, and we've already qualified for the playoffs, so we're in. It just kind of depends on how tonight goes and Thursday night goes to see where we set ourselves up for the Class A state bracket. Volleyball's off to a great season again, currently ranked second, tied for second. I believe they're 8-1 in conference. And a big game last night down in Big Fork where they won 3-1. And then next week we got a home match with Ronan, and then they're off to Butte for the Blocktoberfest Friday, Saturday. And then we kind of get into conference tournament time from there. Football's currently ranked fourth in the Western A Conference with a 3-2 conference record. Big homecoming victory over Big Fork Friday night. So if you were there, it was an amazing crowd. Lots of people. I think every little kid in town was there. Just a great overall performance. The halftime with the homecoming royalty was awesome, and they'll head to Stevensville Friday before wrapping up at home the weekend after. I think we've already stated this number before, but for fall participation for athletics, we're at 270. So, I mean, that's between our activities and our clubs and our athletics. I think we're doing a pretty good job of making sure kids are getting involved and they're having some attachment to some group outside of the normal school day. I want to give a brief update on our athletic training situation. I had some questions, and Dave wanted me just to touch on it, and it might be more Q&A if anybody has any questions. But we are fortunate to have our athletic trainer provided by Logan Health free of charge. It's no cost to the district, and our trainer, Kate Smedley, does a phenomenal job for us. She's been with us for 2 years, and just recently told me that she'll be stepping down at the end of the month to take a job at Jamestown College in North Dakota. Wish her all the best, and just very much appreciate all the things that she's done. She's usually the first one there and early in the morning at 6 a.m. and oftentimes the last one to leave out the door after training is treatment's been done. But that position is really vital for our coaches and just the safety and well-being of our kids. She's on the WeatherBug app for lightning. She's on the Smoke app, and she and I are in constant communication about what, because I can't be everywhere, she can't be everywhere, so we're constantly communicating on decisions that need to be made for the well-being of our student athletes. And so I'm confident that Logan Health will replace her with another really good one. But I want to wish Kate all the best, and she's been absolutely amazing for us. So other than that, that's my brief update. Are there any questions or anything?
I would also just say, you spoke right to it, that congratulations on the passage of the bond. I mean, I know that all the high school, especially athletic piece, I'm sure you're out there a lot. Also explaining things and advocating, educating the public. So
Yes.
All of us,
No.
your efforts on that.
Yeah, thank you. Just very appreciative of our community and all the work with our administration and, Carrie and, like I said before, it definitely takes a community to pull off a lot of this stuff. And I think, just very appreciative of everything.
Thanks, Eric.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll move on to discussion in item C, When superintendent meetings will share information about parentguidance.org and help provide services and support students and staff.
Good. I'm a little out. No, I,
Thank you, speaker. Thank you, Dr. Browning.
so I wanted to, touch on this, parentguidance.org is something we had in place last year. I'm excited to announce that we're continuing to provide this access to this, website. It is a free website for anyone, but it also, in addition to that, we are provided some donations that allow us to provide some specific components of it to our parent community. So, so it does provide a really, access to licensed therapists that provide trusted and specialized courses, professional support, and a safe community for parents. It even has like a little ask a therapist section where you can send an email to a therapist and provide feedback right to you, kind of thing. But in addition to that, through this school year, we will also provide access to that one-on-one coaching for those who are seeking additional support. So it's a confidential service to our parents. And the access through that website. We sent that out in a message here recently. It's on our website. You can access that fairly easily and just click on it. It's all under the tab of mental health resources on our website now. And so you can, families can access it there. Another nice piece to this is that it's also something that can support our staff as well. It's a lot of professional development, helping supporting students within the school community. And also they can access it for the very same reasons as parents as well. So for the one coaching aspect as well. So it's a nice service that we continue to provide this year, and then hopefully we can continue to do that in the future through donations. Any questions?
I remember when this was first presented, we had talked, I think maybe along the line you have given us, but I know it's obviously all confidential, but is there a way to find out the frequency or the numbers of people who have used it from our district? Generally speaking, not even school specific, generally speaking, how many Whitefish families are using it?
Yeah, so when we did get some information on that. The information is hard to find about how many people just access the free resources.
Sure.
So those are on there, and there's quite a bit there. There's free resources that
Okay.
people can access. That includes even an ask a therapist question, things like that. So that's always on there and available. But for the coaching aspect, at one point in March, there were 15 current users at one point that we checked in. So so throughout the year, over 20 people accessed the one-to-one coaching. And it could be more than that, but I remember that specifically that one time at one point, that 15 and 20 had over 20 had accessed it, that coaching aspect. Which is, it may seem like a small number at that point in the year, although that's actually a large. The frequency of that's really nice service. That many accessing weekly coaching support from therapists, that's pretty beneficial. Nice. Nice tool.
So if you do, like, if you log on and it says, we have courses to help, and so if you browse the course and you take the course. I haven't participated in myself, obviously, or I have notes answer, but do you have to insert like your district or your zip code or anything like that? I was just curious how for just those general stuff, like besides the coaching, which obviously they track differently, I'm sure, but just, I know you can't track whoever just logs onto your website, I was just curious.
For the courses?
Yeah.
I'm not sure, I'd have to check. I had that same question. I'm not sure about how that's done.
I just am hoping, the reason I'm asking is I'm just hoping that we are doing, like you said, it's posted lots of places to just make sure the word is out, like, this is all we can do it, because it's a cool program. Like, get people to log on and check it out.
And we're just starting that communication about it again, because we just We're more recently that we have this donation that allows us to provide access to it this year. So yes, you're right. We need to get that word out more. One of the ways that we do provide information on this is in our student assistance team meetings. Sometimes.
Oh, okay.
So we're meeting with a parent, a family, and trying to develop supports for a student and may mention this as a resource to that process.
So they provide services that they would charge for as well, or that's beyond their scope?
No, that's beyond their scope. Yeah, so they would refer that or provide a list of referral options.
So they have, like, they have therapists that families have access.
Well, I'll say, it's actually, the coaches aren't necessarily therapists.
Okay.
They may be, but some of them are bachelor's level psychologists or sociologists who have been trained by therapists to help provide coaching support.
Any other questions? Thank you. So continuing on to item D. It's discussing the school-based behavioral health agreement, and I'm gonna turn this to Dave as well.
Yeah, I'm sharing this for your approval. This is the, something you've seen before and you've approved in the past. And really essentially, this is an agreement, a lease agreement for Logan Health to lease office space within our district to allow their therapists to provide services on site. So essentially, they're leasing our facility through this agreement, an office space, essentially. In the past, it's been a larger space that they were accessing. So this one refers to 100 square feet minimum. If you notice, that is less than what it has been in the past, but it really is consistent with what they're accessing now. We are needing our spaces, our classroom spaces, and so we need to move them into smaller spaces right now. And it is what they need at this point. If you remember, it used to be called CSCT, and it used to be more group-based therapy, and now it's more individualized therapy.
Any idea why that?
Yeah, the CSCT was no longer offered through the state of Montana as a Medicaid reimbursable option for schools. So we shifted to this model. I think we were the first in the state to shift to this model of an individual therapist doing outpatient services on site through the agreement.
Because that's covered.
Because essentially, yeah, they're covered because they're covered by providing essentially the same services they would in another office
Right.
setting, just by leasing their site.
Got it.
Are there any clarifying questions? Is there any public comment? Then we'll go back to the board for more discussion or a motion. I'll move the approved as presented.
Okay.
Moved by Katie and seconded by Quincy, and then do we need to let Darcy go?
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye. Sorry,
Thanks, Darcy.
I was too excited.
She said hi.
I know too.
Oh,
Ah,
no, we'll pretend I said hi.
So that, you get all that, Lucy, we're good. Yeah. All right, so we'll, move on to, item E, which is the bond election canvas, and that will be Lucy.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Before we go over the results of the election, I always like to start with thanking people, because there were many people who made the election possible.
I'd like to thank high school students Sam Casey and Cash McKay for stamping almost 11,000 ballots with the official ballot stamp. Wow. They did it as part of their football volunteer work. Wow. Okay, so I was very great. And they did have some shoulder pain, I have. Yes. But I usually have the pain comes on to me much faster than. Yeah, football players, so their arms are really. I'd also like to thank Amy Markowitz for helping me with many different miscellaneous tasks related to the election. And most importantly, I'd like to thank the election judges, Sue Brown, Tana Knopf, and Roxanne Peterson for their time and expertise. There's a lot of people, as I said, involved in the election process. I'm just the leader of the band, and I couldn't have done it without everybody's help. Now let's dive into those results, because I think it's very exciting to see that both ballot measures pass. Question 1 was related to the building expansion, high school building expansion, and question 2 was related to athletic improvements. The building question received 2,876 yes votes and 2,200 no votes. So the spread between yes and no votes was 676 votes. So that was a pretty significant success. Question number 2 related to the athletic improvements. There, the spread between yes and no votes wasn't as significant, but it was still significant. The difference of 198 votes was between 2,635 yes votes and 2,437 no votes. There was 10,798 registered active voters, which makes the turnout of over 47%. Yeah, which is a yes, which is a pretty high turnout. We think the turnout was high because of all the communications that we did, be it electronically, in person, at the farmers market. Even though every time they went to the farmers market, it was raining.
See, they did invite it from the
I think compared to last year's bond election, we had much more interest and much higher participation from the community as a whole, as far as me receiving phone calls with questions, not just on election day, but throughout the whole process. So if you don't have any other questions, I'd like you to accept the results of the elections.
Can you just ask one question, I guess? Remind me, last year, or when it didn't pass, when was that vote? What month?
October.
It was October, so pretty similar. Okay.
It was October 3rd, I believe, and we did it right after home.
And right when, I think the new land, your taxes had just.
Yeah, yes, yes. So it was 11 months ago.
Thanks. Quite remember the exact time.
I'm just curious to see if you're able, how much time do you think it takes you to run an election?
2 weeks.
For election. For lunch. And I know some of us know, but can you share with the public what time you were here till that night?
Yes, so the election judges and I were here until 1:30 AM of the following day, September 18th.
2 weeks and long days.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to the community.
Could I just ask for one, is this thing stamped as the official record, the document you provide? Could you please correct building,
Building. At the top of the tally sheet.
unless that's a German word that I don't know.
Building, which one?
Second sheet,
Oh, the second sheet, I was looking at the, oh my goodness. Yes, I am going to. That, it looks like something fell on my keyboard.
After 2 weeks, that 1:30 AM.
Oh, thank you for catching. Oh, no, that's, that,
like I always say, somebody has to be pedantic.
yeah, thank you for being so.
Are there any other clarifying questions? Then public comment? Back to the board for any further discussion or a motion. Lucy, I just want to thank you. Sure, we all do.
Yeah.
It's really entertaining, but yeah, great job.
Thank you. As I said, it was teamwork. And, it was teamwork, not just during, the election prep. It goes back at least 12 months, Elizabeth, when we started with those, committee meetings, when we identified what the needs are, what we need, what we don't need, that goes back for at least 12 months. There were many other people, about 25 of us.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people out there who really work very hard to, for some people who just don't even think about voting, and I think that's why the voting numbers are really high too, is that, people reminded people to vote, and I think sometimes that is as simple as it can be is. But that voting percentage was, I think, remarkable.
Yes.
So. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll move that we accept as presented. Moved by Katie, seconded by Quincy. Those in favor?
Me too.
Oh, congratulations, unanimous. Right. You, doesn't see that. Everybody. Moving on.
We can move on with that.
Okay. So we'll move on to F, which is WHS expansion discussion. I'm gonna take that over to Dave again.
Thank you. Well, as has been shared already, first and foremost, I want to express my thanks, gratitude to the school district community for the support of our schools. The expansion of Whitefish High School will help us meet our student needs and enrollment in the next 15 to 20 years. And provide quality, continue to provide quality buildings for our students and activities. So we're excited about our next steps in this process. And so I wanted to share a little bit about that as well tonight. So we're beginning that RFQ process. We'll be in the process of accepting applications for both the architect and the owner's rep. Our goal is to finish that process, the screening process and the interview process for both of those pieces by December 8th. So, or just the December board meeting. So when we meet in December, we hope to have recommendations for approval at that time. And then following that, quickly following that, we will begin a process for the general contractor as well. So sometime in January, we should have make some decisions, hopefully regarding a general contractor. And then the architects get to work, right? They'll be getting to work in January as well, developing the design concepts, but we have the design concepts, but they will be taking those design concepts further. Complete drawings for the project. At that time, with the general contractor on board and an owner's rep on board and an architect on board, we will know more about our phasing of construction, how that looks and how long that might take for different sections and parts of the project. So we're really excited to get that started. We're already started. We're moving through the RFQ process, and we're excited about our next steps. Any questions?
When is the application closed for those?
I have to look at the date. It's coming up soon for the.
So the applications are due on Friday, October 18 at 2 p.m. And
For both, right?
For both the architect and the owner's rep, at the district office.
Did those sort of notices or the legals are sent out to any companies?
They're sent out on a, I don't know what you have the title.
I do, so the way we announce and get this in front of as many people as possible is through an online platform called Bid Exchange, Montana Exchange, where all RFQs and all requests for bid are posted from the entire state. And whoever and people in the know who are in this business, who are contractors and architects and owners, rep, they go there all the time. So they see projects and due dates, not only from the state of Montana, but from all across the nation. So that's our main resource. We also are obliged by law to post the information in Whitefish Pilot at least twice. So we had 2 advertisements in Whitefish Pilot, and we'll have 2 in the Daily Interlake. And then, of course, it's under the news and announcements, in the news and announcements section of our website. So those are pretty, that's how we do it with any project, and we always get a lot of interest. Even though no applications have been received as of yet.
I'm sure they're coming.
So I'm sure too.
Any other questions? Good. Okay. So we will move on to item G, which is the Whitefish School District channels for communication. Mr. Means will present information about the Whitefish School District channels for communication.
Yeah, thank you. This is something just I wanted to bring up for discussion. We talked about it last year as well, and I think we have a year prior to that as well. So this is on our website, and we really think it's a helpful tool. In fact, it's in a section on our website. There is a link to it right up on the right of the website where parents and anyone can access that link quickly. And the reason for that is we're really trying to seek and promote this effective communication and this process for answering questions and resolving any issues that arise. The process, really is focused on that respectful, direct, open conversations related to issues or questions that may come up. So that's indicated on our website and shares some information about it. What it does, it also lists, okay, if there are issues regarding something that's happening in the classroom or involving an individual child, who do you go to first? So it outlines that process first. Let's start with the classroom teacher. That's not resolved, then we would move to the assistant principal and maybe the building principal and then to the superintendent. Just kind of outlining that process of who to contact if you have questions. We have that information when you have questions regarding curriculum and instruction, budget or business operations. And that one you go right to the director of business. So let's look at the top. Employment and certification, school personnel, residency, building use request, and just outlining that whole information, building and safety issues, special education, IEPs, related services, medical concerns, school security, school counseling, 504 plans. Who do you start with? Transportation. That's a big one. We get a lot of questions. Who do I talk to if I have a question about transportation? Where do I start? And then also, if you look at, it has activities, type 9, and then the contact information listed below as well. And then also the links to different websites. So this is again on our website. It allows people to link directly to those folks or call those numbers to reach them. We want to make this as simple as possible, but a way to help guide folks to who do I ask this question to? And I'm looking to resolve an issue or a question I have, who do I go to? So we're wanted to share that with you tonight and see if you have any questions about it. Just share that with the community. So.
I would just like to say this form has come in so handy several times. When talking to community members, I might say I reference it a lot, especially on the Facebook feed. When people are complaining about something, it's easy to say, have you seen this? And go here instead of Facebook.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Do teachers and do you feel as though, and administrators feel as though it's being utilized by parents, or is it? I mean, does it seem like people are accessing it?
I don't know. That's a hard thing for us to
Yeah.
measure. That's a good question. I think I am referencing it a lot too
Yeah.
with folks, and I think our administrators are, and counselors I think do as well. I think it's a good tool for that, but the frequency of it again, that's hard to say. But I think it's really helpful to be able to reference it, especially because and these are just more informal. This is an informal process that's resolving issues. There are formal procedures. We have policy about that, right? It's a 1700 complaint policy that people can follow as well for written specific complaints. But this is really about making sure we have good conversations, respectful conversations, whether it's a simple question or maybe it's one that's more complex. Where do we start? I have to say though, Katie and I worked on this when we first started. I think she brought this to my attention. That's a tool that was used in another district. So I thank you for bringing it to us.
You made it work, good job.
So we formatted it based on that other school and what they were doing. It was through the public school district in Princeton, New Jersey. They had a similar kind of concept, borrowed their ideas and made one for ourselves.
Makes a lot of sense. Good job, Dave. Yeah.
Really cool. I like that at the bottom, because at first when you look through it, you're like, yeah, but how do I know who the principal is? Like, you may not know their name, you know, especially if you have a kindergarten or something like that. I like that there's the links at the bottom that take you directly. Like, I think that's taking the next step to say, like, we honestly want you to reach out to us. It's not just that. One thing this is super small, maybe I'm pulling a Shannon right now, but like all the schools, if you click on Mold Down Middle School or High School,
Yeah.
it takes you right directly to the staff page, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Be like, oh, and then admin is like listed at the top, and then you can find your teacher's name. If you go to the district website, if you click on that link, it just takes you to the district website. it doesn't take you to the staff page. So I feel like then you're like, oh, maybe it'd be nice, oh, it's about us, it's under staff group, it's just more, so it'd just be nice if that link went directly, you know, to your people, yeah.
Great.
It's just a small thing, but if people are stressed or frustrated, it's sometimes the little things. that matter.
Well, that's an easy fix. Thank you
Yeah,
for
it's just a
catching
link.
that. That's great.
The other question? We'll move on to H, which is the superintendent evaluation tool.
Okay.
I think you're up.
Okay.
On this one.
Okay. So every year we kind of take a look at our superintendent evaluation tool, which is an annual process that we go through. And pretty much in all year, we get information from all kinds of stakeholders. And then in November, Dave fills out his portion of the evaluation. And then in December, each of us fill out our portion of the evaluation. And then the chair compiles all of the feedback. And we meet in early January and review it all. So that's kind of our process. And this year, we realized we have last year's evaluation tool had 5 standards, and the place we got the standards was from school governance research that explained the schools that are moving forward are looking at these 5 things when they're doing their evaluation tool. So we wanted those 5 standards to be part of our tool too. But then we also added our 3 districts, we called them priorities last year. So we had the 5 standards and then 3 priorities. But this year we have new goals. We don't have the priorities anymore. We have these 4 goals. So we wanted to align our tool to our goals. And we also realized that some of the standards and the goals were redundant. For example, the first standard is about academic achievement and our first goal is about academic achievement. So we decided to kind of marry those 2 ideas together and base the evaluation tool on our 4 goals. And then the standards are folded in to the goals that they fit best. So we have kind of a new draft of our new tool that we'll talk about tonight. I guess the main difference is it's a lot shorter. Now that we consolidated standards and goals together. We took out, based on our conversation with Bia about the school visits, what we realized is we have the school visits as a way of opening up conversations with teachers. But the hard thing about it, with teachers, with staff, with creating relationships, the hard thing about it is like 2 of us would hear something that not everybody else would hear. So it wasn't like we all had the same information, and it also wasn't a very standardized way of collecting information that we could all share. So we took the school visits during the day, kind of out of our process, and decided a more effective way to do school visits would be in the evenings, that we could all go together and do a tour of the school. So we'll do that during work sessions instead of splitting up and visiting the schools in the day. Now, that doesn't mean that trustees can't go to schools during the day. We can go to events like the Veterans Day Assembly, you know, things that we're invited to that we can see how schools operating in that way. But we realized that our school visits that were the 2 of us wandering around, we didn't really feel like that information was like that helpful to all of us, because we all had different experiences and we never really had a chance to debrief it. So we kind of reimagined school visits as an opportunity to let the principal highlight what's going well in the building and also invite the community to also come and see the school that night. So it's kind of more of a community relations event now. And that's probably the biggest change in our tool. I don't know, have you had a chance to look through it? Do you have any thoughts? Yes,
Three questions. One is, so it's a calendar year evaluation?
yes,
As opposed to calendar year.
yes.
And, so is the updated trustee eval 24-25 school year? Is that where you can see the new form is?
Yes.
Okay. And so the evaluation for 22-24 was just kind of FYI.
Yeah, just to kind of show where we were coming from. Kind of like when we do a new policy, you see the old policy and then the new policy. But if people have input and insights, now's the time to, you know.
I have a couple questions, because, and Rainey, so you know, like I had to print off both and like put them side by side.
Me too.
I was being very overwhelmed.
Yeah, like all these papers, yeah.
I'm so confused now. Process, and I've even done it before, so it was still, it's always, every time, this is always new to me. One thing that along those lines, if we could add page numbers to the new one. that
Totally
would be
agree.
Great.
Totally agree.
Yeah,
I had to go through an MA.
I was like, wow,
You?
I maybe didn't, but
It
I
helped.
just staple it.
So it's all the other things, literally on the same page.
Yes, literally on the same page. So with that in mind, as I discussed what my thoughts were. So one of the changes, like you mentioned, the school visit thing, as I was looking back at it, thank you for clarifying. What the new school visits were, and that was enlightening to learn via like, oh, yes, and this wasn't functional, and I think we felt it in our guts that this wasn't like quite what we had wanted out of a school visit. So that was nice to have that validated and also recognize it's probably not legal. So, that being said, the second paragraph under, oh, that's number 1, informal feedback, right? So that's totally different because we took out the school visits. But,
we're still doing school visits
but I guess,
to gather information, and it's still part, which I think it actually needs to change.
this just doesn't reference it, I guess, as part of the that school visits are referenced.
Oh, I see what you're saying. It's just in the heading and not in the body.
Yeah.
Got it.
Well, it's not even in the heading, school visits is taken on the heading.
Right, so can you
Yeah.
hear me? Sorry,
Yeah.
this is a hard one to be away from.
Yeah.
So, cause I guess we are doing school visits in the form of like, yeah, if we go to the Wax Museum or something like that, but that's why I put the K-12 Connect in there. Cause we were gonna use that time to like visit buildings and teachers are there and community is there. So that was my thought as I was editing this, which I want to say was a beast to edit. And that's also why there are no page numbers and there's a lot of typos and that's going to be somebody else's job. I'm pulling the flag. This is as far as I can take this. But so that's where that K-12 Connect comes in, but we can definitely talk about adding something else in there, but that's what that was meant to cover.
And I guess I sort of sensed that we're kind of leaning into the K-12 Connect. And so then I was reflecting on like my last K-12 Connects, and I've never really viewed those as what you just, as informal feedback opportunities. Like I view K-12 Connects much more as like, there's a specific topic and we're getting, like when we did the MTSS stuff, like there's a specific topic. And so I even had like my old one, like what's the last one? It was about, you know, it talks about, yeah, the MTSS data and how that works. They're always great and interesting, and you do connect with community and you do connect with teachers in small group settings, but it's not really information that I take back as like, I'm gonna use this as how I'm gonna do my superintendent eval. Like I'm not getting that kind of, I don't know, it's just different type of information, I feel like, but maybe that's just me. I don't know.
I think it is, Quincy, and that was something we kind of like, so we took it out and then I think Katie and we were like grappling with it a little bit of like, oh man, that was a big piece. So when we go back though, and we think about what our role is when we do school visits,
right?
It's to look at the building, right? It's not.
Totally.
So I think we're trying to figure out how to do two things. One is just our goal as a trustee and our role of being part of the school visits, because that's important, and visiting the school, but that's really more on a foundational structural level, not as an informal feedback. So then the other piece, so K-12 Connects are a way to connect with teachers and community, but then the other piece that we talked about adding in there as a non-negotiable performance standard would be the community needs assessment on an annual basis. Okay. And then that would give us some feedback. And so that is not in there because we came up with that idea post publishing the agenda. So that's another thought that we had.
I like that thought, because I went through the eval and then all that, I don't think be taking all the time here, but because then I went through the eval and I was like, okay, what information could I fill out if I hadn't ever done a school visit before or wasn't? And I feel like that's a great opportunity. I think I just need more opportunities to get data to then fill out the form. And I totally get, visits are almost like in a class by themselves at this point for a different, they're in a different box basically. But I don't think a K-12 Connect alone can kind of fill that void left by the visit, so I'm just looking at, you know, brainstorming what other opportunities there are, so that's great. Yeah.
One thing just to think about is that, I'm just thinking of evaluating in staff, it's not related to just one single event.
Right.
One situation.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
but evaluate based on how I communicated the seats, right? So it's basically if you're in a, K-12 Connect, a lot of the times those are related to our goals of our strategic plan. So there may be something in there that you observe in relation to our strategic plan. It's important. So
Yeah, and I feel like
See what I mean?
definitely, yep, that some of the
So-
goals, as you go through like goal one, I would feel, but especially goal two. The standard is relationship with staff and board of trustees. Like those have really specific performance indicators that,
well, in a
Like-
K-12, I'm sorry, but a K-12
Yeah.
Connect is a community engagement process, right? So you're working with the community and staff and all stakeholders and you're trying to get feedback regarding typically something that's related to student. So I do think it's good information.
oh yeah,
Observing and hearing information, so it's good information. Same with the comprehensive needs assessment. It's related to our overall goals of the district. It's just good information.
yeah, I guess I think the comprehensive needs assessment maybe could address like the performance indicators. You know, I don't know the page number, but is proactive with personnel matters, personnel policies are discussed, delegates responsibility, staff is up to date on important matters of policy changes. Like, none of those are gonna be answered in a K-12 Connect. Do you know what I mean? Like, I have a sense just from how we talk about different matters, like you said, in a meeting, we get like. Oh, Lucy's just like, those are just specific ones that I pulled out, that I was like, I don't know how to answer those right now. So I'm just looking at how other people would look at this to get the information to answer it, that's also to guide me
And
how
I
to do it.
my concern is, I think. Also that, I think, because if you read pretty much our goals, the things that are named all the time are students, staff, and community. And I think that K-12 Connect does a great job, or does a good job of engaging the community, but I don't know how good of a job we do to get feedback from our students and our staff, and that is where school visits helped drastically, because you could get the feel of kids and their environment, and I think if we're going to do, and I totally understand with not doing the school visits in the old sense, but we need a tool, and I think we need a much better tool of getting feedback from the teachers and the students, because there was some information that the K-12 Connect, I feel like that students, especially in the safe and welcoming, it didn't get a great rating from the students. And then granted, there wasn't very many students, but those are things that I would love to know. I think as we're just doing the review and collecting all this information, I don't know, I think we had talked about potentially doing something where we can do an anonymous survey where we can just get a better idea from students, staff, and the community. But those are the names that are routinely in all of our, and I never feel like we hear from students directly very often either.
So we just sent out our comprehensive needs assessment that identifies all of our stakeholders, including our students. So, and I think that's what, I think that the referencing is that would be a great tool. It's not only giving the information regarding a lot of those things that you just brought up, it's directly related to our strategic plan. I think that's perfectly something that you could look at as some data. I don't think any one piece of information providing you all the information you need.
Yeah.
So I would suggest that's another piece of information you should look at, right? The comprehensive needs assessment.
Is there a way to get that to, I mean, is there a way to have more students participate in that, or is there a way
So
to?
the way we just sent it out is we provide it as an option. And it's gonna be sent out to students. If parents object, we won't we said if you do not want your child to participate in the survey, you can opt out. But if they want to participate, Mr. Brown will be setting that up Wednesday. That's Thursday, sorry. Yeah. So Thursday. So, so they could do it now at home, but Thursday also at school.
And is
So
that-
anybody,
Is that the, what,
Yeah.
this is that, like, this must be from last year, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I was trying to remember what information I.
It won't be similar, same question, I mean.
The reason we did, in our strategic planning session, we
Yeah.
talked about doing the same or very similar one again. So we've done the exact same survey. So you'll be able to look at last year's and this year's survey information. That's gonna help us guide if there's any changes we want to make to our action. Our goals for the future. It's feedback directly related to our goals.
So maybe what we're talking about is adding an annual comprehensive needs assessment to the performance indicators under goal 2. About our schools being safe, inclusive, and welcoming. I think like a potential shortcoming of, I think that's great. I think it's great to have multiple data points. At the same time, I think there's 12 questions, maybe 13, and they don't necessarily speak to the welcoming and inclusive schools. So one thing that we talked about before that I think we might want to revisit would be like a climate survey. That where we could see, do our students feel like our schools are safe, inclusive, and welcoming? Do our staff feel like that? And does the community feel like that? And I think that the buildings are doing them, right?
There are 2 questions directly related to that. I think
Right.
3 actually. And that's what we said that we would continue that same manner and continue to gather that information. And it does address those areas. But the buildings will do some as well. They did some last year.
I guess I'm with Katie a little bit on the census. I don't necessarily feel like it serves both purposes very well. I think some of the questions are really, like, I just did it, and I think the questions are great. But I also think they're very general, and I don't know, I think just getting a more not specific, but yeah, I kind of like the idea of maybe getting a better, like, something that's maybe more direct. They're very general, agree, strong, and so I find them, I don't know, I found it a little bit general, I guess, is to try, and not just that we're getting it to glean it just for like an evaluation or anything, but just also, how are the goals, like, how do people within our stakeholder, like, how do they really feel like at this, in a much more, maybe in each building, or just a more specific look at how it breaks down? And I'll about that.
Yeah.
Well, climate surveys aren't designed to be done in that manner. So a climate survey for a school would be done so that the community, the school, and the administration can look at that survey. Okay, this is how things are, feedback I'm receiving as an administrator. These are some things I think we're going to address. Let's look at some of those things and work with our building and work on those things. So it's not necessarily designed for that community to work on that specific, there's areas.
And I would say that, not trying to, like, but I would feel, I think are we part of that community as we are, I mean, all of us sitting up here. That community extends to us. Is that?
In a sense, though, you're the policy, and you're the board of
Right.
policy and governance, right? And then the schools themselves are working on those things, because we want them to, I don't necessarily want to intervene on that either. So what I want them to do is build that community.
Right.
And I want our leaders to help facilitate that community, because that's the leader that's the better balance and beneficial. If I'm overseeing that, achieving that, I will oversee, that's not gonna be effective. We want them to build that together as a team and the community. That's what surveys are designed to do, like that. And I support that, the research supports that. I'd be glad to help facilitate and we will be. Because I think it's important, but I don't know if it's important to do at this level.
That's fine, if we can just get at that data, that information from them. And great, filter it through an administrator, so they could say, you know, we see pinch points here, or we, you know, the staff, you know, that's fine, we don't need to see, you know, we need to see aggregates, but just let us see those. And I think that solves the problem, I think.
And not necessarily for intervention.
No, not
For
necessarily,
knowledge.
no, that's
Just
not
for
our
the
goal,
knowledge.
it's not our job to intervene.
Right.
You know, it is our job, however, to, you know, query of the people who are, you know, responsible for these students and, you know, at a direct level, to say to us, this is how you can help us as a board, or this is how, you know, this is something else the superintendent can do, or this is something the superintendent does really well. That's the kind of thing that they can provide to us.
I think we have made incredible leaps and bounds when it comes to transparency related to our academic data. And it's like all out there, and we have the report that Lisa does, and
That we used to.
we feel, yeah, it used to be really hard to access. And we also have incredible transparency when it comes to the budget, and it's all out there. And when it comes to climate, I mean, our goal is safe, welcoming, and inclusive schools, but from my perspective, we're operating on sort of anecdotal pieces of information, and a standardized tool would just help us not engage and manage at all. Because I don't think any of us want that.
No, thank you.
But to monitor progress toward a goal.
And that's what, if you look at our questions, they do specifically relate to every goal of our strategic plan, including safe and welcoming schools, which I think is one. It's great. But it sounds what I'm hearing is you want additional questions related to additional areas that aren't in the current survey or a more comprehensive survey. The whole question then becomes, do you want to include it as a resource in get back to the question in your evaluation? Or
I think
sounds like
what
you're
I'm hearing,
on a more comprehensive survey than we currently have, because we do have one.
What were you gonna say?
right, like I know, well, in the past, you know, I know like the buildings have done surveys and it does feel sort of like what Katie and Shannon were speaking to, like that's held really tight, like the academic data used to be. But knowing that our schools are safe and welcoming is within our purview and something that we should have access to without feeling like it's going to be used as ammunition, the same way the data is presented to the board. So kids can't learn if they don't feel safe and welcome. Teachers can't teach if they don't feel safe and welcome. You know, it all stems and it all works around. So yeah, whether that's shared, maybe not as in like 2-on-1s in a different format versus a work session or something, maybe that's how that's done, but the board doesn't have access to that important data does seem like a lack of transparency.
And it's hard for us, yeah, it's just hard for us to evaluate this one based on the list of bullets that are currently provided.
Maybe we have a work session. We bring in Leah Talbot in and have a conversation with her about what best practices.
Yeah, I discussed it.
It appears like this is, we talked about governance and roles and responsibilities in that last meeting. I think this is kind of getting into those areas of conversation.
Yeah, but we're not asking to manage, we're asking for information to know that it's being managed well, which is, I think, where we sit.
Well, I think it'd be a good conversation.
Or we could amend this to include an annual climate survey. But I think that we would need to start it next year. So that we're not evaluating on it this year, because we don't have time to implement it. I think there are tools too that are standardized. Like we do that Swiss data thing, right?
That's listed as the behavior data reports provide evidence of slate, climate, and effective prevention. So it's like, okay, there's that, and then student surveys, postgraduate, current students, and at-risk students. I didn't actually, that was one of my things, I was like, I don't know what that is. The student surveys are listed as a bullet.
I don't think any one of us wanna be involved in the business
No.
and micromanaging and anything like that. Just from being accountable for the district, being accountable for safe schools, it's hard to be accountable when we don't have access to the information. That's really the rub. I think that's what's hard to evaluate.
I think, could we have, I mean, could it just be a question to Bia if we're allowed? I mean, is that the question? Are we allowed to have access to that information, or is that? I think that's just looking at our timeline, you know, there's just, you know, those might be the only things that we have access to currently this year. To give us the information we're after, or just trying to have knowledge for, and so is it something that could be, you know, done? Cause if we do it in a work session, then we're, you know, we start going out, and by the time I think we have it decided, it'll be end of November. So is that the question, is to speak with her about, is it okay to look at that information?
I'm not sure.
So. We talked about roles and responsibilities and where, folks, yeah, there are some. Guidance that would be something that would be considered, whether or not. A anonymous tool be used for an evaluation, yeah. Because she guided in that meeting
Right, and
that
one
it
thing
was only administration.
But I mean, this is an anonymous tool that we're using for an evaluation. Like, that's the thing is, you know what I mean? Like, it's
But
just.
this is related to our overall. Strategic plan, right? So it's giving us information related to the strategic plan, how we're forming as a district.
Yeah,
Right.
and so would a climate survey, yeah.
Because it goes with the data, which goes with point number 1, but that's only a data survey. That
As
only
your
goes to
members
goal number
change.
1.
Okay. In the meeting, as you recall, I think she did not include staff administration. There may be a reason for that, so I would.
Well, that was in evaluating
certainly-
you. That was
Yeah,
not
that-
about a climate of our entire district. That was about our evaluation.
Correct.
Yeah,
we're
so
not
I think those are 2 different things.
Evaluating you or a building admin, it's evaluating like what. Like, do you enjoy working for this district? You know, I think about my employee survey, I do.
Well, I guess I misunderstood
That kind
that. What I heard
Yeah.
was talking about the evaluation, including this climate tool.
Right.
If that's the case, I think we have to ask for some guidance.
Well, I think like you
Right,
said, we're gonna use every piece of data we have available to fill out a comprehensive evaluation. So at
Right.
every board meeting. Every participation at homecoming, like we're using it all, so it's just one more. That's how I would, I guess, if that helps clarify the intention behind wanting more information, just so I just don't know.
Just a way to.
I just don't know how to answer, yeah. But, I mean,
I think
Just a way to inform us. I mean, that's really how I see it, is that it's, I don't know necessarily think that we would include that data in here. I just think that the board would benefit from seeing that, from hearing what that says to inform our answer to these questions. That's the way I.
yeah, that's exactly, yeah.
I just feel like we've made so much progress in terms of academic data, it's all out there. Our facilities and our budget, it's all out there, and it's really hard to monitor progress towards safe, inclusive, and welcoming, and engagements with family and community without some kind of standardized tool where those questions are directly asked. That's a tricky part.
Well, I think we did just that last year with that tool,
With which tool, this one.
to see it. And we're doing it again. Some people would call those questions climate survey questions. Definitely. They actually meet the criteria of the climate survey, if you look at that. Not all of them. it could be more comprehensive. That's what I'm getting. I'm thinking, I'm hearing you say you want something more detailed and comprehensive than the current
Yeah.
survey that you
Totally, yeah,
already have.
yeah.
Some people might call that a needs assessment. Some people might call it a climate survey. In fact, even OPI's accreditation process says if your current CNA meets the climate survey criteria, then you can use your current CNA as the climate survey for accreditation purposes. So, but when they talk about climate surveys, they talk about for schools specifically, not a district. So there's some terminology you're discussing that's
Yeah.
interesting, you know, I think you could try to develop, I guess, you'd want to make sure you're still doing a comprehensive needs assessment that meets the criteria of OPI for that purpose. That also meets a climate survey purpose possibly, but you wouldn't do that in the same instrument probably.
Right.
So schools are where the climate survey emphasis is right now. If you want to get that, so.
Yeah, and I guess
So-
my question is if, instead of taking so much time, if those surveys give good information that could be, do you want to spend the time to make more surveys, or is that information usable by the board? I guess is my question. Or do we have to make more surveys, or couldn't we just already use surveys that are in place?
Survey fatigue.
Well, that's exactly what I'm
Oh,
saying. We
okay,
already have
not-
them.
Yeah, in
So-
each, yeah.
So, but, we were about to explore, so we have a current CNA that meets the criteria for OPI, right? This comprehensive needs assessment that meets that criteria. You have to have one of those. And that passed in our accreditation process. Now they're requiring for this year, school climate surveys. If your comprehensive needs assessment meets that criteria, you wouldn't even have to give one again. You just have to give them every 3 years. This instrument probably doesn't meet all of the requirements. It's some of them. And it would have to be delivered differently because to be a school climate survey, it would have to be specific to that population of the school, and the students of that school, or the parents of that school in that community specifically. So I think the safer route to go is through school climate surveys. Or if it's the direction of the board, we want just a much broader survey that's very comprehensive. We could look at the OPI survey.
Well, the reason I
CNA
brought up the
survey.
Swiss one is because there's a,
Swiss is not a survey. So
no, Swiss is not, but it comes with the PBIS that we pay for Swiss. Also offers a standardized climate survey tool
Oh.
that is building by building that you can package in with your, because we already pay for it.
Is it
basically.
for students?
It has a student, a staff and a community component. And I think that's exactly what we're asking for. And I personally, I think a standardized tool just allows you to see how we are doing and track it, as opposed to questions we come up with ourselves, which are great for the CNA, but it might not give us an overall look.
So
From
I'm hearing,
people who are like, you know, this is their job to make these things, to measure this exact thing.
what you'd like to see is a school climate survey,
I think it would be helpful,
not a district.
because
So
it's
that's what
exactly
we,
what you're saying, the school climate.
so that's what we've been talking about as a district team. We will be working on those, and we were gonna look at specific school climate surveys that were already made as a possibility. The challenge here, one of the challenges, we already talked about this today, actually, we talked about some of the surveys. Challenge is, some of the ones that are made, don't ask some of the questions you want to ask either.
Sure.
So they're gonna ask some questions that are very specific to general questions that they may not align with what we do, so. So it's interesting. So our thought at this point was to explore school climate surveys. And see if there are some meet our needs and meet all the areas.
And we're on the same page.
And I think
But
it's
what
just,
you do with.
you're understanding the intention. I think that's what I feels like. I think we are speaking the same language now, which is hopefully just being the lingo right. But I think just recognizing that the intention from a trustee standpoint, to speak for myself, principal trustee standpoint, is that my goal, and I view an evaluation as being proactive rather than reactive. And so I feel like that information, what I would hope to get from a student filling out something about, man, I have all these clubs I can join, this is a fantastic place, I feel really excited to come to school each day. Like, I would love to hear that, feedback, rather than me assuming. I mean, that sounds great to me, like, or rather than me, finding out, or us finding out, all of a sudden, like, man, we have a lot of dropout rate, I wonder why. Like, just rather than reacting to some other data point down the line of figuring out, oh, I wonder how we're doing with things that are standardized knowledge base, this helps with XYZ. That's all, I'm looking for the information.
It also.
Not to tell anybody how to do their job, but the 10,000-foot view that we are in charge of.
Right.
of
It
Okay,
provides context,
yeah,
like, cause
In
when
theory,
people
yeah.
come up to us and say, oh my gosh, this and that, it's helpful to say, well, gosh, the survey indicated 80% of people feel otherwise. It just
Yeah.
provides a broader perspective. So that, cause otherwise, like, you just hear from the people who have problems.
And where do you
It's
hear it?
really
You hear,
hard.
you hear it in the community, you see it on Facebook, you see it different places where if that's all you've got to go on, it informs your decision, maybe the wrong way.
Right, and getting outliers instead of.
Right.
Yeah, it's always outliers, but if all outliers are, yeah.
And I do feel like the last year/2 years is very unique as far as some of the ratings, because we've been going for a bond and a levy. So there's tons of information I can fill out, like, yes, like, all this promotes, actively communicates with the community and get, all that stuff is very measurable because it's like very obviously done. So those are easy to score. That's what I'm just looking for, is the same ability to be like, oh yes, I know this happened, I put this happened with these other bullet points for that specific. That's all I'm looking for, is to fill that data with something. For your sake as well as, so that is where it becomes like your sake or whoever's in your seat, that it's objective. Cause that's what's most fair to you. Eventually, and best for the district, really. It's not just a trustee's impression or whatever echo chamber they're in.
I have mine's like a timeline question.
Yeah.
On this is, I guess my one concern is what information will we have probably time for?
Yeah, this is all looking forward.
Yeah, this would definitely,
Yeah,
there's no way we would, implement a climate survey
No.
and do all that by December. November is when Dave pulls it out, and then December we pull it out, and then January we write it down. So,
that's I guess my question
Yeah.
is what,
work in progress.
yeah. This year,
Right, yeah.
So
Without
we
the
just need to
full
make a plan
results.
to revisit this at a certain, like, use this one for this year with the plan of revisiting it at a certain date. Is that how this would work, or what do you guys?
Yeah.
Cause you
My-
said you're having conversations, or like, I guess when kind of surveys or whatever.
Climate surveys, we have to complete for February 20th.
So they will not apply.
Right.
No, in order to select one and work with them.
So I feel like this is a conversation that needs to happen a little bit offline, and maybe this is the further work of the superintendent, which I apologize, I couldn't make the last one, so I, pardon this.
On the
But-
policy or the committee.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
or something so that we can, because I don't feel like we're giving a clear direction
Right,
today.
that's what,
No.
yeah.
And I understand his frustration in not getting that clear direction.
Mm.
So I'd like to see if we can take this offline, and
So what do you wanna do for now?
for now, we really just have to.
We
move
go with
forward
this
have
now.
to.
As is. the
I
only-
think for next year, though, we should start that now, not in September.
The only thing that I think we should maybe change on this one is that the building tours by the trustees during work sessions, which is currently on page 8 under the schools being welcoming and inclusive. I think we should move that one to the goal 4 about maintaining improving facilities.
Yep.
But other than that, like, edit, which doesn't change.
Katie, I'm trying to take notes over here. So you're on page 8 of the old one?
No.
She added page numbers.
She added page number. So-
Right, okay. So you're on page 1.
Right there,
So what do you want to add where?
I just want to take building tours by trustees during work sessions off of the non-negotiable performance indicators related to safe, welcoming, and inclusive schools and put it under goal 4, which is about facilities.
Oh, so it's under goal 2 and you also want it under goal 4, or you want it off of goal
We moved
2?
it from goal 2.
Off to, because
Okay.
what we decided is
Okay.
that the point of the tours is just visibility.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I'm just taking notes so I can try to
Yeah,
update this later.
and it sounds like we
Okay.
decided that for now, we'll keep the goal 2 as is. And then we'll continue talking about that on the committee.
Can I
Okay.
throw out one other thing that's unrelated to, is that under goal 4, the standard of business and finance. I just was wondering about one of the non-negotiable performance indicators, because it's sort of, or maybe this is the right spot, again, just throwing ideas around. Because maybe it's more about relationship with staff and board of trustees, but I do feel like the relationship that Dave and Lucy have, the importance of that being so collective and is like unique amongst itself.
Yeah.
For the success of ours as a district.
Yeah.
Perhaps I'm wrong on that, but it feels like that is worthy of a non-negotiable performance indicator, that there's somehow a measure of like working relationship with district, yeah. With the, because, no.
Oh.
It's under goal.
No, I'm just wondering how you would, how would you like that worded so it
Yeah.
sounds, because it's hard to say you have to get along with your.
Totally, that's what I don't know.
So, I don't know how we word that.
How should we say that, Lucy?
Lindsay, how do you make that measurable?
You know, what I would suggest. is
Yeah.
Some of this goes back to
The committee.
it's,
Okay.
in my opinion. it's too
No, I
detailed.
believe that it would go back to the committee. I figured it'd be,
Now board, meeting, you know, I think we can get into some of the details of that conversation committee. It's a posted meeting, you can come and observe as well, working on developing some of that information. Bring back.
so my intention with getting this on the agenda today was that this would be something that needed to be revamped, and hopefully we would have the final draft ready for the November board meeting.
Oh, great.
So that was kind of, I didn't think that this would be the final draft because I know we made a lot of
Right.
changes and it was a big one.
But we'll just
I-
like take this feedback to our committee meeting,
Yes,
work on it from there. That sounds good.
And I think it's important to mention. You know, if there's significant changes, maybe there's a time where we just revert back to the. Because we are actually moving into the final section of this evaluation.
Because we've got to have it approved and handed to Dave to fill out his.
You're right.
Right.
It would definitely have to be approved by the November meeting.
Right.
So if we're unable to kind of
Yeah,
come
I see
to
your
a
point.
conclusion on the next meeting, it doesn't seem to make sense to utilize it.
Which I think we can.
I think we can do it.
But, you know, yeah, you don't mind, I did make that suggestion that the committee needs to discuss.
Yeah, my intention was to take it back to the committee with feedback from this meeting. So what I have right now is looking at somehow adding a climate survey. This getting the community needs assessment or DNA addition in there. And then a relationship with your business director in some form. Somebody's going to add page numbers, it won't be me. And there was one other thing. Oh, the addendum that we had, it's the old on the other one, the previous one. We are going to attach that to this one because we felt like it was a good way
Yeah.
for trustees to look. It was just having a hard time copying and pasting. So the intention is that that addendum will be part of this document as well.
Okay, we'll start with this in November. Cool. Okay. So we are, is everyone comfortable with moving on to item number I, letter I? Which I am also, I'm gonna turn over to Baby.
Okay. So, Just in front of you, you have a recommendation for hire list for maintenance technician and substitute for guest teachers.
Any clarifying questions? Any public comment? We'll bring it back to the board for a discussion or a motion.
Can I just ask you a question, just because I'm sort of reliving COVID days too, and we're hiring more substitutes, how are we doing with subs in the buildings? Are we short or are we?
It's very hard to fill,
It is.
especially classified.
I move we approved.
I second.
Moved by Katie, seconded by Rainey. All those in favor?
Aye.
So everybody can see. Okay, moving on to letter J. I'm also gonna turn this one over today for the out of district student application.
Yeah, so before you have, administration recommends denial of letter J applicant. For the 24-25 school year, because adding another student would exceed our accreditation cap at that grade level. In accordance to our Whitefish School District strategic plan.
Is there any clarifying questions? Is there any public comment? Back to the board for discussion or a motion.
I guess I do have a clarifying question. If room becomes available, do we notify the people? Or they just have to keep checking in?
We allow people to reapply.
Okay. Move we approve.
Second that.
So moved by Katie, second.
She can have it up.
Seconded by Shannon. All those in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to letter K. Another out of district student application.
So again, our recommendation of denial of out district application. For this grade level. For the 24-25 school year, because that would exceed our accreditation cap.
Clarifying question. Any public comment? Back to the board for discussion or a motion.
I move that we deny entry to suite 4441 based on administrative recommendation.
Second. Okay. Moved by Shannon, seconded by Katie. All those in favor?
Aye.
Everybody.
It's awkward to move to approve to deny.
It is.
Okay. Letter L.
I mean, you could also agree to or move to approve the recommendation of
Right,
that.
right.
It is what.
Okay, letter L, it's an out of district student application, today.
Yeah, administration recommends denial of this application for the following student, for the 24-25 school year due to a violation of attendance policy truancy 3123. And following our out of district policy 3141 guidelines. So our policy on truancy. And out of district policy includes information about truancy.
Are there any clarifying questions?
Yes, in this case, in this particular case, I am under the assumption that should this person apply again, we would meet the same thing.
We have a process and procedures that we follow in direct relationship to policy that considers each application as they come in, and then we apply those procedures.
So that we would look back through it again and see.
We would look back through it again. And that includes contacting previous schools to see their attendance and other issues.
Clarifying question? Any public comment? Back to the board for discussion or a motion. And move to approve it now. Second. Moved by Quincy, seconded by Katie, all those in favor?
Aye.
Everybody? Okay, now. All right, now back to A, so we're moving into the reports section, and we all start with A, which is any trustee announcements.
I have one. So as many of you know, I went over to the Pacific Northwest Conference, Special Education and Law, and it was a charcuterie board of terminology, some of which I'd heard before, including section, and it helped me demystify the differences and similarities, et cetera, between section 504 and IDEA, and what is state put and what is LRE and what is faith, and I can tell you what all these are, you know, and prior written notice and sleeplessness and senectitude have me forgetting, I'm sure, some other ones on there, but it was fantastic. It was wonderful to and keep in mind that I was of the people I met, which wasn't a huge number because we were all so busy. I was the only trustee. So this conference was mainly aimed at, you know, people who eat this stuff for breakfast. You know? And so I sort of had to just, you know, kind of be bathed in it, you know, like, here you go, dunk in it and figure out what it is, you know. So there were acronyms flying like there are in any education conference, and but it was fascinating to learn what, you know, I have a newfound respect for anybody in this realm. I mean, just but I guess the main takeaway was, so in programming, we have a saying that what is the difference between a bug and a feature, and the difference is documentation. And that really applies here to what this conference was about, was talking about. A good chunk was having lawyers who were steeped in this, and there were, you know, like I wasn't aware there were this many, you know, high end lawyers who this is all they do. Like they are special ed lawyers, and there were some very good ones, and they, you know, they would talk about these things, and basically it came down to that, is that, you know, if you document, if you followed the procedure, the law, and you document that, and you have, you know, that's what's going to save you if there's a work, is really what it comes down to. And it really was fantastic to hear from you know, from these because most of the speakers, I mean, it was a law conference, so most of the speakers were attorneys, you know, talking about the nuts and bolts, and this was very much a nuts and bolts conference. This wasn't theoretical. How do we, you know, it wasn't about advocacy. It was about how do we do our job in a way to protect the district and serve the student the best. And that's what was really nice. What really came out is that in all of this, you know, these lawyers, every one of these lawyers, both primarily, maybe exclusively, represents districts, and in these cases, and yet every one of them, what was clear to them is that the goal, you know, of this program is about the student, it's about, you know, protecting the student, and they were very clear about that. It's like, you know, look, if you do these things and you treat the students and the parents right, you're gonna come up on the good side of the law. And the racial factor, that's one of them. The racial factor. It's the factors that determine, there's four, I believe, four as I remember, that determine if the program that you're prescribing for the student meets the racial factors. It's a kind of a litmus test almost. And it's based on a court case, an age-old court case where we know both the first and the last name of the person who was involved in it, although we're not supposed to. But it's based on the student's name.
Wow.
That's all I got.
I don't need any of that for breakfast.
Well,
Maybe like continental breakfast.
It's really, there's
She
just,
walks by
there
it.
just was so much, and like I said, I dug it, it was great, it was just amazing to learn. And of course, I love the law, so anytime you say something in law, I'm gonna be interested.
Thank you for participating.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. It
I
does.
did go to every one of the things that I could, including somewhere I like ducked out, like, I wonder if they're still talking about this over here. Because you could only attend with those 3 going on and you could only.
Those are so hard.
I think the most fascinating one, I think, was the non-FAPE requirements, the FAPE is free and appropriate education, so the non-FAPE requirements are sports. And activities. Stuff like that. It was fascinating. So now I'm an expert.
But now I'm hoping to practice.
Yeah. They'll be doing the next fall.
Okay.
But you folks that deal with special ed, it's done.
Yeah. Any other trustee announcements? We'll move on to B, which will be the superintendent report.
Okay. Boy, Jake and other athletics, all the reports today, we covered everything that's happening here, has happened and will be happening here. It's really well done, and that is really nice to have. I gotta. Jake.
Good job.
Yeah.
It's so helpful because it's a really broad coverage from a student perspective. You can't beat that. That's great, great stuff. Enrollment, you can see, overall, in October, it's 1945. At the end of the year, last year, we were at 1932, so we're up over our end of the year enrollment, slightly down overall. But again, we're gonna see ups and downs in enrollment. We expect to see that, but I expect that trend line to continue, based on all the information that we know. The other one you'll see is 629 for the high school. Little bit less than last year at this time, but again, that fluctuated quite a bit last year. We ended the year at 616 last year. And as we've talked about next year, we are gaining 184 students from 8th grade or more, because typically we likely add more. So we might be adding another 10 to 20 on top of that coming into the high school and losing 123. So we're going to be approaching 700 students next year in high school pretty easily. So we'll see a significant increase there. So again, we're going to see fluctuations from year to year, but we do anticipate that trend of increasing enrollment, and especially as you look at the high school.
Is this our official October count number?
This is our official,
Okay.
well, it's, yeah.
No, no.
Well, yes,
Yes,
no,
no.
actually, October 7th is the date, and I don't think this was
No.
the number on that date, so we'll have more.
It would have
information.
been hard to.
That has
pack
to
it.
be.
Yeah, exactly.
It would have been packed in. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So, and then another count date is in February, right? So we'll watch that. We had quite a bit of fluctuation last year during the year, so we'll see this year too. And I don't know. We have different things happening. Maybe over the year.
The chef makes special things.
Yes.
Sorry.
It's kind of wild. how
You're not
much
sure what
smaller
you're
that
talking
seems.
Yeah, and just the trend continues though, as you can see, most of our population recently is in the middle school. So in terms of grade level totals, that's what we've been seeing. The middle school gained a lot this year, just at the beginning of the year, just in August, right after the year. So we're seeing that trend continue, middle school and high school enrollment.
So obviously a new school won't be built in time to accommodate 700 students. So what do you do with 700 students at lunch?
So now it's back there. Well, we'll see. I know they're going to be exploring schedules and all kinds of things to address the needs as we move forward. I think they've had some conversations already.
Yeah, parking, lunch, you know, those community hours are gonna be really challenging.
Yeah.
And the construction project on top
On
of
top of
that.
it, yeah.
Take away part of the
Right,
parking lot.
take away
with
that
construction
space.
equipment.
You're gonna have to go a parking lot, like a.
Yes.
Here.
And that's when we talk about the expansion, we talk about phasing, staging, there's gonna be a lot of discussion.
Totally.
Where are all the, where's the equipment gonna be held?
Right.
Where, things like that. So it doesn't take up a lot. of Parking. There's been a lot of discussion down here in terms of how we phase the projects. Good thing we have Mr. Duran who's been through all that before. So
Every minute.
And really good logistics,
Right,
right?
yes.
Let's hope we get owner's rep as good as me.
Director of Business, see.
I think I just mentioned.
Oh, yeah, right.
Quick thing before we go on, you can see your resignations there. I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay, financial report, back to the fall count date. It was yesterday. It usually takes us about a week, everything, and double check everything in Infinite Canvas. Then the data is uploaded to the state.
What period
So,
do you do it?
what's that?
What period do you do it? Like, is it the morning count or do you do it midday?
No, you look at the whole day.
The whole day, okay, that's, yes.
So it usually, it's not just, one day and you pull a report, that doesn't work that way. It's much more complicated than that. And most of the work is performed by the school secretaries, and Jacob does some checking as well on the back end. Now, what that means, once we have those four counts, what can we start working on? Estimated budget for next year, right?
There's no rest for the weary.
I know. So that's that. So I just wanted to add that to the full. In front of you, you have our monthly financial reports. I've removed the ESSER side charts because all that money has been spent. Spending both in the general fund and the other tax levy fund is pretty consistent with prior years. You can notice that on page 3, I renamed the heading of that page from other funds to other tax levied funds because I thought it was more appropriate. Because those are the funds that are supported by the state taxes. So just a name, a change in the title. And then we have our usual 15 or so pages of the general fund budget to actual detail. It's not an exciting read. If you're not into it.
You sure?
I would say, but it's very, good job.
So that's where we stand right now
What is that?
with very finances as of September 30th.
That's very interesting. I want to be in our district in our budget. So, it's
Not
very,
everywhere.
no. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Any other questions? Moving to the consent agenda, is there any public comment for the consent agenda? Back to the board for a motion.
I'll move this.
Second. Moved by Katie, seconded by Quincy. All those in favor? You're on.
Sorry, aye.
Okay, so last motion, to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, give us a ring. Moved by Shannon, seconded by Brady, all those in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn.